Inside the 5th generation of the Nissan Pathfinder, and for this generation of vehicle, Nissan has decided to move their 3-row SUV up market. They have done their best to make this feel more like a premium automobile, and on top of that, sadly gone is the Jatco CVT, and in its place is a traditional automatic gearbox. So when you look in the interior of this thing, you can tell they've done a good job with it. There's a good use of materials in this cabin. Minimal piano black, good use of leathers, and matte materials. Perfect for an SUV you're going to put your kids in. When it comes to the control structure and really the infotainment of this vehicle, it's some similar technology that you've seen in things like the current generation Nissan Rogue. The head unit is basically identical, which means, again, all physical controls with redundant touch controls. You have a Bose audio system, which is average, and the menu structure is easy to use. Though, when it comes to the audio system, the cabin itself is pretty quiet for the most part, which is, again, perfect for a car you're going to be using for long-distance road trips. The gauge cluster in this car is also their traditional digital gauge cluster. There's good technology, it's easy to scroll through, and for the most part, the screen itself and the black levels are pretty decent. However, for the 5th generation of Pathfinder, they've also included their Pro Pilot Assist program, which is Nissan's safety suite. We're going to talk more about it in the shop. It allows you to have things like adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist. Both features work very well in this car. When it comes to the ergonomics of the 5th generation Pathfinder, this is a traditional 3-row SUV, which means with the 3rd row up, you have minimal cargo space, but with the 3rd row down or 2nd row down, this is basically a minivan when it comes to the cargo space. And the load floor in the trunk is fairly low, which is perfect for a vehicle like this. The 2nd row comfort is pretty good. They slide forward and aft, they recline, and they're perfect for full-size adults. However, the 3rd row should be reserved for larger children or adults you don't like. The front seats are another story altogether. They are not my favorite. The seat bottoms are good, but the seat backs and the headrests don't really fit my body all that well. Yes, I have an orangutan body, but I think you should sit in this car on a test drive before you make up your mind. However, the visibility out of the front is great. There's a ton of front glass, there's minimal blind spots throughout, and in a vehicle like this, it's exactly what you're hoping for. When it comes to the front seat storage solutions, they're great. The door cards are huge, big enough to fit a full-size Yeti. Your armrest has a large cargo nook, and your glove box is huge. But past all of that, I think it's time for us to head into the shop and put this thing up on the lift.
This is the Nissan Pathfinder, the new one. Built in the United States in Tennessee. This is built on the D architecture, which has been around for quite a while, but this has been heavily revised. And when you look at the size of this, it is enormous underneath. And when you're driving it, you can feel it almost is like a truck, that presence, that road presence. However, it is a unibody design. It is not body on frame. It is a front-wheel drive platform that you can get an optional all-wheel drive setup depending on your trim level. You have strut front and multi-link rear. You have aluminum lower control arms in the front and aluminum knuckles. So they have tried to put aluminum in strategic places to reduce unsprung mass or just reduce weight in general. The big thing for this generation is there's more thought to NVH, reducing road noise, vibration. It's a quieter, more refined experience because of it. And mechanically, you now have a tie-up with ZF. You have a ZF 9-speed automatic torque-converted transmission. This is a new direction forward for Nissan, and truthfully, this is a much better setup than their old truck or old SUV. Now, under the hood is a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6, which also might be a huge draw to some people with direct injection. And the negative part there is it is a little rattly sounding. That high-pressure fuel pump does make a lot of clicking noise when you're outside. But everything else underneath looks pretty cleaned up. The sealers and all the body adhesives look really much better than what we've seen in the past, with the exception of some things that stand out, like their brake lines here. 2 of the lines are touching, and they just used the foam tape wrapped around one of the lines to prevent any chafing. So it's some of this stuff that you see and you don't see, that you don't know how this is going to hold up over the long term. But mechanically, the changes they made to drivetrain are super important, and I can't wait to see how this is on the road. You know what, Jack?
There's no CVT in this thing, Mark. I'm gonna be sick.
You know who you're riding with? Where are you going? I'm first place. This is for first place in cross country. Conference champion. And I'm now a champion in my adult life. Oh man, from a dig, this thing's incredible, Jack.
Are you a champion at breeding? That's what you need, your 3-row SUV, Mark?
Well, now that I got bad knees, bad ankles, bad quads, shin splints, my Pathfinder delivers on all the prerequisite things I want as a family man.
What's that, Mark?
You have multiple trim levels, Jack. You can go all the way from 30 all the way up to 50 like this bad boy's spec'd. You get semi-aniline leather. You get premium materials. You get in beautiful piano black screen and touch points in multiple areas.
Excuse me, Mark, these aren't piano black. If you look closely, there's some nice inlays in the piano black that gives it some sparkle, Mark.
You know what? Where else there's a sparkle?
Where?
In my eye right now, because this is a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 paired to a traditional torque converted automatic. The driving experience is exemplary. There's no strange vibration, no fake engine noise, no gear hunting. It's just a calm, comfortable, and legacy-like experience. And when I say legacy, it just feels like something that is 10 plus years old in a good way.
Joking aside though, like it is good that they've gone from a CVT to a 9-speed automatic. That is a good thing.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely nothing wrong driving this. We put a lot of miles on it, and to be completely fair to it, this is a product that is trapped in the middle of a lot of good other products. And my thing with it is if you took the Nissan badge off here, you have no idea what it is.
But is that really a bad thing though? The fact that nothing particularly stands out about this because this is a hyper generic segment, but more importantly, from a driving experience at least, nothing really stands out about it being bad either.
Nothing stands out about any SUV or anything in this price category. The two competitors in my mind are the Highlander and the Telluride Palisade. And in all, which would you choose, to be fair to those three?
I would pick the Highlander.
And I think I would pick the Telluride because it's more, feels like I'm fake luxury. It's a boat. The tech's good.
This is a weird middle in the line, but because the Highlander, you have the eCVT, which is a downer, but you have the Toyota reliability and the dealer network and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah.
The Telluride is massive. It is faux off-road looks.
Yes, yep.
And it is a couch. This strikes a balance between both of them.
So why would you choose this over those other competitors, Jack? Because it doesn't really, I mean, I guess it's giving you the price, you know, they're giving you a lot for your money here. But why would you choose this over those two? I mean,
this V6, Mark?
That's the magic word right there. The drivetrain, to me, is better than the Telluride. It feels less pokey, it feels more natural, it's more responsive, and it is more smooth. And I think for me, if I was into something like this, there is a huge benefit to that.
This is like the drivetrain out of the Pilot with a modern interior. That's what I like about this thing.
Yes, the interior is the big selling point. And it's hard because Nissan, to me, they've taken all the good things from all the other products. They know exactly what they've done here, what works, you know, what people like, and it is so hyper generic. It has no soul or no like feature that you would buy the Nissan for over the other ones. So Jack, what don't you like about this thing?
I think this car lacks some of the attention to detail and some of the interior components that some of its...
But it's got a V6, who cares?
No, Mark, you called me in the middle of the night. It was like 4 a.m. It's like, Jack, the Nissan that doesn't have the interior detail that I'm used to in my Lexus products. So, Mark, what ruffled your feathers about this?
It does feel very front-wheel drive, and that you do get a front-wheel drive only option and all-wheel drive system on demand.
I can't wait to drive a front-wheel drive V6 SUV.
This is a big boat, and without the all-wheel drive setup, I have a huge fear that this is going to drive like a total turd. With the all-wheel drive setup, it's very functional. The ride quality is great. It is soft. It is on the softer side without feeling like it's blowing around everywhere. And we had this on the highway, and it does do a good job of isolating out a lot of the road noise, even up to like 85, 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And
But you said some of the attention to detail in the electronics bothered you.
Yeah, so here it is. And I know you talked about the interior part. Here's my gripes. There's a ton of backlight bleed from this primary screen. You can see the edge light backlighting bleeding across the whole screen. It does give you a one touch off to turn off the screen, which is fine, But then you get to things like the gauge cluster. It is enormous just for the sake of it. It's not really showing you anything. It's just a huge screen with a lot of wasted space. And the biggest thing in terms of usability, if you don't care about that, is the auto HVAC controls in here. I cannot figure out what the hell's going on. And I played with it yesterday for about 30 minutes. It will send heat to the floor and not upwards, where you have to manually change it. It will cook your legs and then all of a sudden you're freezing up top, or it'll cook you up top and you're freezing down bottom. It cannot maintain its controls. And this is one of the first auto climates that I've been in where I'm just like, there's got to be something wrong with the tuning of this. And to me, there's a lot of that little detail stuff that's not here, from the audio system being a completely reflective, like head in a bowl type experience. They did the things that on the surface look great. Really, in a showroom environment, you're going to be like, oh, this is great. It's got a heads-up display and all that. But most of the attention stuff hasn't been completely worked out. And I hope that they get there because it's enjoyable to drive.
At least the infotainment and the gauge cluster, I will say, are pretty much legacy Nissan things at this point. And you do get all the safety stuff. So if you don't have the problem that you have with it and you're okay with what's in the current higher end Rogues, you'll like this. But I agree with you. I think other brands do a better job, particularly with the gauge cluster.
Yeah, and integrating all of this stuff together. And I think that's where, personally for me, I can deal with kind of the generic SUV experience and it's all done great. But there's the finer details that I think that are not here, that something like the Telluride has figured out a bit better, and even Toyota.
Yes. But if you are comparing this to a Pilot, the Pilot is a dinosaur compared to this thing.
I mean, you would just throw the Pilot out at this point until they do a redesign. But when that Pilot and that next generation RAV4 or next generation CRV turn into something like the modern Civic, it's going to be a totally different story again. So again, the competition is pushing these SUVs to like weird levels we've never seen before.
I agree. So Mark, with that, I think it's time for us to head on the final thoughts, sir.
Sounds good, Jack. Final thoughts on the Nissan Pathfinder. Now, we had a spirited debate during the drive about who this is for and why you would choose it. So here it is. Doesn't look crazy. The interior is functional. It's got 3 rows that are usable. It rides great. It's pretty quiet. It drives good. It's not body on frame, but yet has a 6,000 pound towing capacity. And it does most everything right. And Nissan has adapted. They have altered their stance on CVTs that people have complained about, and now have moved to a ZF9 speed, which is one of the better transmissions in the business. So they've also kept their tried and true V6. And that, to me, is one of the most compelling reasons to get this if you are a Nissan person or interested in this brand. The interior and exterior, however, are largely a copy and paste of what everybody else is doing. And in that regard, I feel like this lacks a little bit of identity. However, you could say the same thing about every other SUV and CUV that's on the market. They're basically using data and more information from focus groups to figure out what is it that people want in a top 10 list, and they're trying to do everything possible to make sure all those bullet points are met. This is a commodity vehicle, and if you look at it that way, it's that bread and butter, do everything, be appealing to the most people possible. It really is, to me, I've been quite surprised by it. I think it's way better than I expected, and I think they're definitely moving in the right direction. They just need to work on some of the attention to detail stuff that may not be here in terms of quality. Now, again, what do you want? You can't have everything, and the Pathfinder tries to find its way to your heart in all the ways that most people like. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.